It's Tuesday, the 27th of May. I'm Alec Hogg. Here's your BizNews Briefing. During the apartheid era, the people of my vintage remember so well, we had religious leaders standing up and being counted. This time round, despite the fact that South Africa seems to be going through a very difficult period, to put it mildly, the religious leaders have not really made their voices heard, except for the chief rabbi, Warren Goldstein. After the smackdown in the Oval Office, the chief rabbi decided to come out and tell his flock what he thought of it. Here's a small clip from a very forceful insight from Rabbi Goldstein.
The White House meeting between President Ramaphosa and President Trump in full glare of the media served to highlight the appalling failures of South Africa's ruling elite. The moment when Mr. Trump played Julius Malema chanting "Kill the Boer" in a packed stadium was particularly devastating.
Kill the Boer! Farmer! Shoot to kill! Gamaza!
Every decent human being in the world watching this knows instinctively that "kill the Boer, kill the farmer" is hate speech and criminal incitement to violence. SRF polls show that the vast majority of South Africans, including ANC and EFF voters, regard it as hateful and wrong. Everyone knows it is wrong, except President Ramaphosa, who has never publicly condemned the chant as hate speech, not even in the Oval Office when he had every opportunity and motive to do so. Everyone knows it's wrong, except the judges of the Constitutional Court, who just a few weeks ago ruled unanimously that "kill the Boer, kill the farmer" is neither hate speech nor incitement to violence. They even dismissed the right of AfriForum to appeal the decision, saying it was inconceivable that another court could hold differently. This judgment casts a shadow on the integrity and legacy of the Constitutional Court and makes a mockery of their role as the guardians of human rights in South Africa. The judges should hang their heads in shame. President Trump was right to highlight the moral aberration of "Kill the Boer" chant and the horrific farm murders. But he is wrong that this is only a white genocide. It is a South African genocide. As the head of COSATU, Zingiswa Losi, pointed out in the moment, offering as defense of President Ramaphosa, but only to make the case more damning.
There is no doubt about it that we are a violent nation. If you go into the rural areas where black majority are, you would see women, elderly, being raped, being killed, being murdered, and these are black elderly women that would be found throat slits, raped multiple times, and all of that. And the problem in South Africa, it is not necessarily about race, but it is about crime.
Every South African knows that she is right, that violent crime savages black and white alike. The numbers do not lie. In 2024, 26,232 people were murdered in South Africa. That means that just over 70 people were murdered every day. To put that into context, more people are murdered in a single year in South Africa, a country of 60 million, than in the combined populations of nearly 1 billion across the US, EU, UK, Australia, and New Zealand. The total death toll of those murdered in 30 years of ANC rule is 653,758. Think about that number. 650,000 people who have been murdered on the ANC's watch.
Yeah, it's powerful, isn't it? And I recall Archbishop Desmond Tutu during the height of apartheid making similar statements about the government. And of course, Madiba saying the same thing. If the ANC do to you what the National Party did to you, then do to the ANC what you did to the National Party. It's a very, very interesting time, and a time when too many people are averting their eyes from the truth, from the reality, from our national shame in the White House last week. Man, and it's so easy so simple to fix. Let's hope that people like the chief rabbi will instill further backbone in those who would stand up against the evil that is perpetrated all around us. Unfortunately, we've got a few more of those stories coming up in the briefing today, but we can't move on until we hear what Neil de Beer has to say. He has a wildly popular Sunday show with my colleague Chris Stein, and over the last week, he spent a little bit of time saying who was not in the Oval Office and indeed who should have been there. Let's listen in.
We land at the United States. Chris, funny, everybody in a different aeroplane. Hey, not all of them on the same plane as the president. So John Steenhuisen and the rest of them did not fly with the president. Very interesting. Maybe we should also ask Qatar for a jet. Get to the White House. Jan Rupert, Retief Goosen, Ernie Els, and a gentleman called Adrian Gore was there from Discovery. He was invited by our president, not like the other ones. And he doesn't even get into the door. Adrian Gore's got to sit at the hotel because he gets told your numbers are full. So we've got 3 golfers, great businessmen, who in a very big way took the sting out of that meeting, but that had presidents before the president's people. So, madness. Chris, what I was looking for, where is Mr. Jonas? So I was sitting, looking at the same show, but speaking to someone and saying, Nkabisi Jonas, the special envoy of South Africa to America, isn't there. We then get told a sob story that he got stuck in London and had other business. No. He's the special envoy of USA, not UK. I found that very strange until I dug a little bit more, and the rumor has it that he was told that it is not good to have him in the Oval Office due to the fact of his previous escapades of lashing of the tongue to Mr. Trump, and that's why he wasn't there. So, Chris, then we had the paraphernalia. We had 4 ministers sitting there not opening their mouth. We had one president sitting there laughing and smirking while people are playing videos of kill the boer, kill the farmer. Him and that other little troika girl who sat there, who is still under suspicion of corruption, the minister in the presidency, both of them sitting there. Wrong body language because they are filmed smirking and laughing while Trump is playing Julius Malema songs. I think that was something that this country's people looked at and went, they are definitely on a road to a hiding.
I would love someone who knows all about body language to give us just ping me, alec@biznews.com, so that we can hear from an expert how they can assess the body language of what went on in the Oval Office. I'm sure there's an interesting story to be told. In fact, body language has become very popular as an area where people do investigate and assess the truth or not of these involvements. Well, I promise you, that's it for the Oval Office slam down. We'll move on to other issues of importance now and into the days ahead. One area where they actually couldn't give a continental about what's going on in Washington or the White House is in Hekpoort. Now, Hekpoort, you might know, those of you who've traveled the road from Johannesburg and Pretoria through to Sun City, is a place with lots of signs and not very big. There doesn't seem to be too much there. Well, there certainly wasn't until now. Hundreds of thousands of people are now congregating there after the Mogale City municipality decided to make it a place for people to squat. Chris Stein spoke to one of the activists, Christopher Bean, who's an advocate, and he gave her this insight.
This was a development for 208 houses. they are sort of like 1-bedroom houses. I'm not sure if I haven't seen all of them, but they were pretty small when I went to see them. The next thing about it was, Khali said, he said, yes, we are bringing these people in, and there's going to be another 36,000 coming as well. Whether they're coming into that particular housing or they're in other places around this area, 36,000 people coming into a rural area where there is no employment, there's no facilities, there's the schools, such as they are full. There is a clinic that is a temporary clinic where a truck arrives every week to look after patients. The facilities are it's like transforming a small town that was built in 1850 when nobody was here except the Khoisan people, and then all of a sudden they've now putting thousands of people into this area. And it's a kind of the policy you would have thought people would have had some idea about demographics or some kind of sociology background, because you are literally transforming and destroying the existing environment and transforming it into a brand new upgraded squatter camp. And I'll give you an example of what Gary Player put. I heard him on your program the other day, and he said something that made a lot of sense. He said the South African government is ruling over a nation of squatter camps, and that when you drive around and you see this country, and you go to Johannesburg, it's a squatter camp that goes upwards, and in the rural area, it's a squatter camp that goes sideways. It just gets bigger and bigger, and the facilities, the lifestyle gets worse and worse. So, I mean,
now, how many people? Sorry, Christopher. How many people are in your area in squatter camps? Can you give us an estimation, please?
Okay, in our area, which also includes a little part of Northwest, there's a place called Shamburg. That's within 10 kilometers of the center of Hekpoort. That's actually in Northwest, and that is what everybody is scared. This place, which is called Dr. Sefularu, is going to look like. It is a place where I would say there's probably at least well over 100,000 people. There is an extraordinary amount of crime going on at the moment because most of these people do not have any work. Then there are 5 smaller squatter camps, which you can't always see from the road, but they're there. And it goes on to a place called Impandlani at the end, which was where there was an invasion of land, and also land belonging to the railways. And so if you say how many people, I would say, you can call me, if I could say 200,000, you can call me a liar for 1 or 2,000. Nobody can work it out, and it's impossible to calculate.
So what the heck is going on in South Africa? Come on, guys. You can see it's in front of your eyes. Bad economic policy means people are unemployed, means people have got no hope, means they go where they can find any place to work, any place to eke out a living. And you get hundreds of thousands of people descending on a rural community and destroying it. It just doesn't make any sense. When are we going to sober up? When are we going to see that you cannot break economic rules and think that things are going to be different? Hey. Talking about economic rules, it's not all sunshine and roses for Donald Trump. And now he's starting to get pressure from the companies that keep the American government in the style to which it wants to become accustomed after Elon Musk, probably with a heck of a lot less money being spent, but even so, lots of taxes. The Economist put together this piece. It's part of a leader. The way The Economist do it is that they write these articles and then get a professional actor or actress to read them. We've taken a clip from a very pointed piece which shows how Donald Trump is hurting American business internationally.
For decades, America's soft power put the wind in the sails of its companies as they ventured abroad. When the Berlin Wall fell, Coca-Cola sent lorries emblazoned with its logo into East Berlin to hand out free drinks. Sales soared as consumers in the former communist state chugged enthusiastically on the sugary icon of American capitalism. Peddling Americana abroad, however, is getting trickier. Last month, Carlsberg, a Danish brewer that bottles Coca-Cola in its home country, noted that consumers there were boycotting the fizzy drink, opting for local alternatives instead. Coca-Cola can thank Donald Trump, who has exasperated Danes and many others with his talk of territorial expansion and his trade war. How worried should America Inc. be about its new image problem? The president's actions are already weighing on American companies' sales abroad. The backlash has been strongest in Canada, whose citizens have railed against the suggestion that their country should become America's 51st state, and Denmark, thanks to Mr. Trump's threats to pinch Greenland. Last month, 61% of Canadians told YouGov, a pollster, that they were boycotting American products. Earlier this year, Ontario and Quebec, Canada's two largest provinces, pulled American-made alcohol from the shelves of government-run liquor stores. In Denmark, the country's largest retailer, Sailing Group, has been labelling European-owned brands in shops to make it easier to avoid American products. The souring towards American brands has been on display elsewhere in Europe too. Tesla, Elon Musk's car maker, is the most prominent example. New registrations of its vehicles in Europe fell by more than 40% year-on-year in the first quarter. All this will worry American firms, which make more than $8 trillion in foreign sales each year. Not all will be equally harmed, though. Morning Consult, another pollster, has examined the correlation between consumers' views of America and their opinion of the country's brands. The relationship is strongest for technology companies, car makers, and food and beverage firms, and weakest for hospitality companies, logistics providers, and healthcare firms. Foreign consumers are more likely to forego a bag of Cheetos in protest than they are a cancer treatment from Pfizer. A lack of alternatives may also make it harder for them to abandon services such as Google or Instagram. Even so, many American firms will have to grapple with the fact that their nationality may no longer be an asset, but a liability.
At Sun Exchange, we make going solar simple, profitable, and completely risk-free. Join over 100 satisfied South African customers already enjoying the benefits of risk-free solar. Start saving today. Visit sunexchange.com and join the solar revolution.
Who would have thought being American company, no longer admired? Well, here in South Africa, we have a system on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange where companies report early in the morning so we can bring you up to date with the latest news that matters on that side, on the corporate side. It's always very interesting to get the numbers from the companies because they're dealing in the real economy. It's not talk. It's much more about, well, the money and how the money is going around. Coronation Fund Managers, which is one of the leading asset managers in South Africa, released its financial results today. It's extraordinary that this business makes 2 billion rand in profit in a 6-month period. But there you have it. It has increased its interim dividend from R1.85 to R2. The headline earnings per share barely budged, up 2%, and assets under management were very slightly higher. The celebratory announcement is that the company is now 52% black-owned. Coronation's done pretty much nothing in the year so far, down by 1%. Here's a reflection of what's really happening in the South African economy. Stefanutti Stocks, once one of the proudest of construction businesses, is clawing its way out of, being technically bankrupt at the end of the last reporting period. It said its liabilities exceeded its assets, which means unless you can trade yourself out of it, you actually are bust. Well, they are managing to do that. The share price, as you can see from the graph, jumped up in anticipation of the financial results and is now 13% higher for the year to date. Headline earnings per share were positive this time round, and they have managed to repay almost 150 million rands off the loan that was strangling them. That loan is still, though, sitting at 850 million rand, and this was achieved through the restructuring program, the sale of the Mozambican division and the construction business. They've also had a settlement on Kusile, which brought in a bit of money, and settlements in Angola and Zambia. Reinet Investments, Johan Rupert's company, has managed to offload the last of its British American tobacco shares. The Rupert family, of course, made its money out of tobacco, Anton Rupert being a tobacco baron, one of the largest tobacco companies in the world at one point in time, but they've now divested from that. The younger Johan Rupert went into luxury through Reinet, through Richmond, and Reinet was the place to house what was left of the tobacco interests, and now those have all been sold. So they've gone away from cancer sticks, and they are investing in other areas. The dividend here was up by nearly 6%, and there is a valuation on the company. This was in the year end-to-end March, which was up by 12% to nearly 7 billion euros. And finally, of the reporters today, Pepkor Holdings brought out results for the 6 months to the end of March, and it continues to trade extremely strongly. Revenue was up 13%. If you take away the new stores that are opened, and they're going to be opening between 250 and 300 new stores in total for this financial year, that is to the end of September. If you take that out, the sales were still up by 8%. It seems as though the big are continuing to get bigger when it comes to retail here in South Africa. As far as the share prices generally are concerned, South Africa has been doing relatively well, and it could have even better times to come. The head of emerging markets at Morgan Stanley predicted this morning to our partners at Bloomberg that emerging markets, and that's where South Africa falls, are in for a pretty good ride.
We've been talking about a revival of emerging markets for quite some time now, but that hasn't really happened.
Of course, but we're starting to really see the stars align now. You've seen the performance year to date. We've seen the dollar weakening quite considerably. That's really given a tailwind to some of our markets. If we look at the performance of Brazil, even India now, these are some of the opportunities that we're seeing in EM, and we're starting to see it's a push-pull dynamic that's really taking shape. So we see diversification coming out of the U.S., but you want that opportunity in EM too, and that's taking shape. So if we look at some of the long-term growth dynamics in places like India or even the China 3.0 story, those are some of the areas we really like right now.
You talked about how EMs are benefiting from the weaker dollar. How much more downside to the USD you think from here?
You know, we do really think there's still some way to go. We could go sideways here for a while. But again, the growth rate differential between developed markets and EM is continuing to widen out. If we do see a slowdown in the U.S., it's that growth differential. We still see nice growth numbers coming out of many of the markets. In places like India, we see interest rates coming down a bit, so that's also helping. And if we do see even a few percentage points coming off of that dollar, that's just another tailwind to help us here. So I think there's multiple factors that are really starting to align that really support that EM story. And again, it's not just one market we're looking at, and this really speaks to the active management dynamic that we see within EM also. I can talk about different opportunities in North Asia, South Asia, Middle East is a really interesting story right now, and even Latin America. So we have multiple factors going for us, and that active management really plays out for us here.
Well, Elon Musk, in our tailpiece today, was typically feisty at last week's Qatar Economic Forum. That was before he headed off to the White House to give his death stare to the South African delegation. At the Qatar Economic Forum, though, he was G'd up a little by the editor-at-large for Bloomberg Weekend, Michel Hussein, who conducted a near 40-minute wide-ranging interview in which Elon, I won't say he lost his cool, but he certainly was at his feisty best.
Your political influence. I wondered whether you have decided yet how much you're going to spend on the upcoming midterms. Is it you spent a lot more money on the last US election than you envisaged when you were speaking here 3 years ago? Are you going to continue to spend at that kind of level on future elections?
I think in terms of political spending, I'm going to do a lot less in the future.
And why is that?
I think I've done enough.
Is it because of blowback?
Well, if I see a reason to do political spending in the future, I will do it. I do not currently see a reason.
Okay. What about political influence beyond the US? How often do you speak to President Putin?
I don't speak to President Putin.
You've never spoken to President Putin?
I was on a video call with him once about 5 years ago.
Okay. That's the only.
Why would you think I speak to President Putin? Oh, you must. I get it.
Because
You
I've
believe
heard
the
you
legacy.
speak. Actually, I've heard you speak about it. For example, in your West Point speech, you said, "Oh, I challenged President Putin to was it an arm wrestle?" And I know the Wall Street Journal has reported your reported conversations.
yes.
If you're saying
Journal
they haven't
is-
happened other than once, I'll take that as read.
Is there a worse publication on the face of the earth than the Wall Street Journal? I wouldn't use that to line up my cage for paratroopings. That newspaper is the worst newspaper in the world. If there's one newspaper that should be pro-capitalist, it's the one with Wall Street in the name. But it isn't. So I have the very lowest opinion of the Wall Street Journal. Absolute nonsense. And you clearly believed the tripe that you've read in those papers.
I read very widely, and I'm putting these questions to you so that you have an opportunity to respond to them, which you are, and for which we're all grateful to hear your responses.
Yes.
Okay, we are out of time. So
you mentioned me challenging. I did so on the X platform. I challenged Vladimir Putin to single combat over the. But I didn't talk to him. That was a post on the X platform.
Great. That's why I asked you, and you've clarified and explained. Thank you. That's why I was asking whether you have had reported conversations, and you said you haven't other than a video call. Okay.
Typical legacy media lies.
Hey, Elon Musk, man. You know, love him or hate him, at least he says what he believes and what he feels at the time, which is so refreshing in a world where it appears as though so many people in business couldn't say boo to a goose who really needs to be reined in. I'm Alec Hogg from BizNews. Look forward to being back again with you tomorrow. Until then, cheerio.